Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. Again, we are looking at second order consequences. That is, we think about a new disruption that's happening or a new topic, and we try to think of the consequences of that change and then the consequences of those consequences. Today the topic is precision fermentation and cultured meat specifically. So let me define some things first. Precision fermentation is when you manufacture proteins, for example, or other nutrients through microbiology and very specific natural processes in a reactor, for example. Cultured meat is when you take, for example, you take cells from a cow or a chicken or a pig and you grow them in a controlled environment to produce meat without having to kill the animal. So both of these are emerging fields. Precision fermentation is a bit more developed than cultured meat, but they are very similar in the concept, and they pose to create a big disruption in the food industry. So if we go and look here, what are some of the immediate consequences of precision fermentation? And just to give you an example of things, like those plant-based burgers, for example, that sometimes you see, some niche products that could not be made as cheaply without using that biology and instead rely on more complex chemical processes. This is all things enabled by this precision fermentation. So some of the immediate effects is that you have those niche products and those custom food products. You also get cheaper proteins overall, and you reduce the traditional livestock meat demand. So when you have these niche products, you can also have custom food products suddenly. And you could also think about, at some point, you could have decentralized protein production because of this. If the technology behind this becomes simple enough and cheap enough, you could produce your own protein source from several ingredients in your house or in your restaurant directly, perhaps through additive manufacturing. So something like 3D printing the tissues or the layers of the food one at a time until you get that final food product that you can just eat. Those niche nutrients could also enable something called hybrid species meat. This is also influenced by the cultured meat that can create these niche products. So imagine having a burger, but instead of the burger being made from different parts of meat that have been blended, instead you created a new species that does not exist necessarily alive. So, for example, let's say you could mix a cow and a pig, but they don't exist as a cow-pig in physical form. Just the cells themselves were hybridized, and then you make the meat from that. So you wouldn't have all the issues with trying to make the animal be alive to harvest. You just experiment at the cell level. So that could be something weird but novel that could come out of this. As you have the cheaper proteins, which are, the precision fermentation will influence cheaper proteins overall, but cultured meat will influence cheaper meat protein. Both of these will influence the access to nutrition. So people, if they are cheaper, more people can access it. And as a result, you could have reduced hunger. But as we know so far, when food has become cheap, sometimes there can be overeating and health issues associated with that. Now, the biggest impact, in my opinion, of these two will be to the traditional livestock meat industry. So if these become cheap enough and just as good quality or even better, and all points to that, that means there will be less demand for the traditional livestock meat. In other words, it will become a more expensive and a niche product. As these industries will not be able to compete, they will have to cut costs. That means there will be less animals overall. So the economies of scale kind of work against them. A few, I think, will survive, and they will specialize in very niche meat, maybe meat from a certain type of cow that has been bred free range for God knows how long. That could be an example of something that people pay a premium for. But also, they might just go bankrupt, for example. And that has some consequences. First of all, you have the reduced water pollution, you have reduced water usage, reduced greenhouse gases emissions. Those are positive aspects from less cattle and other livestock being grown just for food. But then you also get job losses and economic displacement, and all of that land, and it takes a lot of land to grow cattle and livestock, all of that land might lose value in a sense because there's not that demand for those big extensions of land before. All right, let's focus a bit more here in the cultured meat now. Like I said, you get the cheaper meat protein, and that helps nutrition. And importantly, and this is quite a breakthrough, the livestock is still alive after the meat production. So you have the ethical part of that, but you also get that maybe you don't have to focus so much on growing vast amounts of them. You just focus on getting the best genes to produce the best meat possible, and you can get those genes either by selective breeding those individuals that are alive without killing them, or you just go straight into genetic engineering. Now, I didn't add a second consequence here of genetic engineering and all the issues that can have, but yeah, I think it's just worth mentioning. It is a possibility. Cultured meat also makes possible something called ethical cannibalism, and I mentioned this in my voice commentary of my Future Lifetime video. So here I mean that you can potentially eat meat from celebrities, and this could be a human celebrity or an animal celebrity, so a famous dog or a famous cow or a famous whatever. You could extract cells from them, create the food product, and sell them as a novelty product for some people. After all, we've seen now through platforms such as Patreon and OnlyFans that people pay for very different novelty products. So it is not outside of possibility that this could happen. I've been focusing more in the protein side of this, and as you can see here, there is cross-pollination of these technologies. But if you can get all those benefits of the meat from the cells, which is you don't have to feed the cow for so many years, you don't have to water the cow for so many years, you don't have to do all of that, kill the cow and just use parts of it, you could apply the same concept to plants eventually. So at some point you would see, I don't know what the name to call it, I came up with cultured plants, but yeah, I don't know. So if you think about it right now, we grow the plant, we put a seed, we grow the plants, the seed develops the roots and the stem, and then you have the leaves, and then you have the flowers, and then from the flowers you get the fruit. If you could just grow the fruit directly without and skipping all of that time that the plant takes to develop itself until it reaches that point, you can make cheaper leaves, cheaper fruits, cheaper vegetables with the same technologies that are used right now. And that kind of brings all of this scope you see here on the right side could easily be applied on the left side. So you have all those environmental benefits and that disruption in the soil farming and even soilless farming, because it is such a big transformation. Okay, so that was a quick run through this new disruptive technologies of precision fermentation and cultured meat or clean meat. You can see again how something simple that seems, oh, we just grow the burger from the cow without killing it and it tastes the same. That could be the first assumption when you look into this. But then you go and look deeper into it and entire industries might disappear. You have all these positive environmental issues, but some negative economical ones. You might have strange new products like hybrid species meat or meat from celebrities. And you can have a whole different farming disruption of plants themselves through the technology that's developed. So yeah, I think you hopefully got a better overview of what is possible. Again, this exercise is just to get you trained into thinking about these second order consequences. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video.